We're delighted to have a really special array of speakers on this topic, which is in the lead up to COP26.
We intend this to be the first in a series of dialogues highlighting India's contribution to the global community's effort in slowing or reversing climate change and mitigating its impact on humanity.
I think for India to achieve this type of a tipping point, we really have to be able to find ways to take along the entire private sector in India, which actually, when you look at both employment, investment, number of units, is really the small and medium sector. And the only way that we can work with them is in partnership with the large companies.
And in the UK, really through a series of policy instruments that reinforced and pulled through more private investment, we've seen a very significant shift towards renewables, accompanied, I think very significantly, by a growing attack on renewables from people who would prefer to think that climate change didn't exist or didn't matter.
For me, the tipping point that we still seem to be a long way away from is recognizing that the fossil fuel industry, the industry selling the product that's primarily causing the problem, has a duty to be part of the solution, not just seen as the problem.
So the private sector has been actually wanting a complete overhaul of the energy system in India. And by that, what I mean is that today, for instance, the agricultural sector, does not essentially pay for energy. I mean, they get free energy, they get free water. Now you can certainly argue that this is essential for India's farmers, especially since many of them are marginal farmers, and many have very, very small holdings. But the effect of that is that it becomes a political subject. And when it becomes a political subject, it's very difficult to make that complete about turn.
So I think it's far more important that we buy products from companies that have credible plans for their own transition to net zero and that are based in countries and producing in countries that also have credible plans for transition to net zero, then we start quibbling about what the exact carbon content of the individual product level is. And that's the direction in which I think the conversation needs to go. We will work with companies, we will work with countries that have plans to transition to net zero, and we will criticize those plans. It shouldn't just be a matter of, we've got a plan, that's it.
As a trade minister within the European Union, I argued very strongly against some of the agricultural phytosanitary requirements that were just crippling farmers and exporters in African and Asian countries, not actually because those restrictions were justified, but essentially because they were a way of concealing protectionism and keeping goods out. So I just think one has to be very careful here about what are the real motives and what is the real justification for imposing those tariff or other restrictions on trade with countries at a different stage of development from those of us in the rich world.